Hello everyone, T-Dub here, and welcome to something a little different. Gonna be doing a video game commentary for one of my favorite video games of all time, Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon. Oh man, I love this theme. And believe it or not, there was like a full version of this that was eventually released. And this song is actually performed by the same guy who sung Chala Hechala from Dragon Ball Z. And he's not the only legendary singer we'll be hearing from in this video game. So just the fact that they have lyrical songs in this Nintendo 64 video game is kind of amazing. Now, this isn't the longest game in the world, especially even if you're just talking about Nintendo 64 standards, it's not really all that long. However, there's still so much charm put into it that we'll be seeing throughout this playthrough. And just for the record, this is a post-commentary playthrough. I already have all the footage recorded. Alright, let's start a new playthrough. And as you can see up top there, I have an already completed playthrough that I did last year. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but that was my cat. Yeah, you probably heard it that time. Probably heard him. That is Cloud. Can I help you? Cloud, can I help you? Can the people help you? I'm sorry, you cannot take snacks from my entire audience. That would be rude. My audience does not want to give you an endless supply of cat snacks. My goodness. So while that's happening, we also have some insanity happening on the screen. Ah man, this music. This might be top 5 video game soundtracks for me personally. Oh, Ebisu, you are existing. I think that's one way to put it. Yeah, big agree, Goemon. Big agree. I should also point out that this was during an era where anytime you had a cutscene of any type in a video game, it was seen as like this big, huge deal. Like nowadays, video games can have a cutscene like every 20 minutes, and people just go like, whatevs, McBevs. They don't think twice about it, but during this era, cutscenes were like a really, really huge deal. Because this is the first time you could actually do that. Like, even with these in-game models. Now we have an introduction to our villainous villains. Sort of, kind of, in shadow. This is the only time we ever see this room, actually, in this entire game. Gotta love that classic Japanese laugh. God, that's such an old reference. Does anyone remember that? So yes, now the Oedo Castle has been transformed. It's really insane how much audio work went into this game because typically on the Nintendo 64, you can't fit that much audio on there. The cartridge itself is really, really tiny compared to what the PlayStation 1 could do. Like, that was like the main reason why Square switched from Nintendo to PlayStation, is so they could actually make the game they wanted the way they wanted to. Because they couldn't make Final Fantasy VII on the Nintendo 64 now without making an enormous amount of compromises. And yet developers like Konami here were able to make this. You know, I can only imagine what a PlayStation 1 Goemon would be like. Although there were some PlayStation Goemon games made, just Japanese only. Never released here in the States, unfortunately. And now my cats are fighting each other. Wonderful. It's like they want to be the center of all attention! My goodness gracious. So yeah, that house, apartment, is currently empty. Won't be for the entire game. So yeah, this is Oedo Town, the first city of the game. And yes, you can talk to dogs. Why? Why not? Also, a big tip is that if you're ever unsure of what to do next to further your progress, just talk to the NPCs. Talk to enough of them, they'll point you in the correct direction, the right direction, whatever you want to say. See? This guy mentions Mr. Mokube, who currently lives at Mount Fuji, which is where we'll be going. Kind of a mini dungeon of sorts. I have a feeling that was funnier in the original Japanese text. The one thing to know about localization, especially during this time, is that a lot of times localizers and translators, they'll just get a list of text, like literally a text document, and just be told, translate this, without any sort of context. And that kept going for years. Like even Silent Hill 3 on the PlayStation 2, that was how they localized it. They were just given a huge text document and just told, do your best to translate this. And they just have to guess as to whether or not they're choosing the correct context, because when you're translating from one language to another, there isn't always a one-to-one translation. Like, there is plenty of that, but there are also a lot of words, and especially key phrases, that just don't translate. That even in recent times I've come across. Like, there's two in two different languages. In Japanese, you have tokimeki. There is no translation for that. There is no one-to-one translation for tokimeki. It doesn't exist. And in Quebecois, there's tabernacle. There is no one-to-one translation for tabernacle. Once again, it does not exist. So if you come across those words as a localizer, you just have to guess. You have to just do your damnedest to just be like, okay, how do I do this? What do I choose? You just gotta do your best. Anyways, over here we have our collectible of the game. Yes, there's only like really one collectible to get throughout this adventure, but we will not be getting all of them because I did that last year for my video on Mystical Ninja, and I just didn't feel like doing that again. And if you're wondering just how long this playthrough is, unedited, just with all my footage together, ended up being 3 hours, 59 minutes. Once again, that was non-edited. Just raw footage for this playthrough. 3 hours, 59 minutes. And I think that's because I just skipped so many collectibles. So just imagine what this is going to be like once I edit everything down. Oh boy. I think once everything's edited down, this is probably going to be, I don't know, maybe 3 hours? Because there is a fair amount of editing that I do just to cut down on backtracking. But that is my real big thing for this, is just being able to cut down on that with editing. And whenever I see like a playthrough of this, it does annoy me when people keep all the unnecessary backtracking in. Over there, there's another fortune doll. Collect 4 of those, get a heart upgrade. And yes, this is like Zelda in that aspect. But unlike Zelda, each heart you see there is 2 hit points instead of 4. So overall, it kind of evens out. Overall, this isn't a terrible way to start the game. Like I said, it's like a mini little dungeon. This is really just to introduce you to the platforming physics of the game, get you accustomed to that, before they throw you into a full dungeon. Overall, the enemies aren't too dangerous, the stakes aren't too high. You don't have to too much worry about falling and starting over. I think there might be one part where that could happen, maybe? But overall, that isn't too much of a worry. And as you've also noticed, they're not going to throw too many enemies at you at once. Like how they're called the biggest mountain. I do think it's the biggest mountain in Japan, but in the world, not even close. I think. Maybe it's in the top 5? Honestly, I'm unsure. Let me know in the comments section. Alright, with that, we finally reached the top. Just gotta move around here. Yeah, man. Okay, of all places, why would he build his house in the middle where there's lava? Then again, I'm asking for logic in a game that, as we'll eventually see, there isn't much of. And yes, this man is performing quite the lewd gesture. But putting that aside, he did make us a chain pipe. As you can see, super useful. Nice little ranged attack. As you can see there, I just cut out all that backtracking. And now we're already back in Uedo Town. I think that was like good 2 minutes of just walking. The only thing of note I cut out was getting a fortune doll, because sliding down the mountain I was able to get one. I wasn't planning on it, but you know, it sort of happened. And I'm certainly not going to complain about that bit of happenstance. By the way, the guy in the pink kimono that we attacked earlier, if you don't attack him, I think he'll steal 50 or 60 Ryo from you, which, as you can see at this point, is a significant amount. We're almost at our first dungeon, Transformed Uedo Castle. Now here's a song that doesn't play too often in the game. Bit of an underrated track in my opinion. And now we get to another good track. And this right here is a pretty good room for farming money, which you're going to want to do at one point. At least at one point. There are 2 money gates in this game. If you plan accordingly, you shouldn't be too hard of a problem. I would say at minimum, you're going to want roughly 1,300 Ryo. Do that, and enemies should also give you enough to get by. As you can see, sometimes enemies drop money! So get money for enemies, farm some Ryo every now and again, and you should be fine. So what we have here is a bit of a gauntlet room. Not something innovative. I'm sure pretty much every action-adventure game has one of these. Just kill all the enemies, and then boom, get the prize. Now that over there is a Mr. Elephant. Basically acts as the dungeon map, but because I've played this game probably more times than 90% of the people on this planet, I don't need it. Pretty sure this is one of the few games where I played at least once a year. This story became a tradition for me. And because of that, I got basically this entire game memorized. I think the only game that comes close to how often I played it within the past 10 years would be the original Mass Effect trilogy. And now we have yet another variation of the enemies. We have these regular dolls, now we have dolls with presents that shoot projectiles at us. Wunderbar! Now we have yet another gauntlet room, and now we have another enemy which jumps over us. And now, that was me trying to just showcase the enemy's jumping behavior, and now cats are fighting once again. Cats are wonderful pets to have, but I would not, what was I saying? I would not recommend having them together 24/7, I guess. Man, this music is just so damn good. Sometimes I just don't want to talk over it. And this is far from the best track in the game. Like, we're just getting started. Also, this isn't a terrible room to farm for money, at least while you're here, I guess. I wouldn't recommend going out of your way to come here just to farm, but, you know, if you want to do so while you're already here, it's not a bad option. And speaking of music, this is during an era where basically every video game had background music 24/7 because we hadn't yet reached that point where you could just make realistic atmospheric sounds the way we can now. That was just a thing with video games. Like, of course you had to have music going. It goes all the way back to the arcade days. It was just what you did. Also, check out those 2D chains. Gotta love those budget-saving measures. That and space-saving, really. Because drawing those chains as 2D PNGs, as well as these spikes, these are also 2D, doing that saves so much space. If they were to make all those 3D objects, those would take up infinitely more space on the cartridge than what would be needed. And what would be the point? Is anyone really going to care if those spikes are 2D or those chains? No. Also, once you defeat the boss, you can go back there and get another fortune doll. Now we have this other new enemy, this sort of drummer. Gotta tell you, they're throwing just in retrospect, just watching this footage, they're throwing a lot of enemies at the player here. Most games would not have this much variety within the first dungeon. I could chain pipe across, but speedrun strats. You'll be seeing a few of those. Also, you're about to see a really big dick move right here. Like, look at this. an enemy right after the full heal, that's a dick move. Dick move. Now we have more killer dumplings. And right there, that was our only ninja in the game. That right there. There's your mystical ninja. Although in Japan, this series was known as Ganbare Goemon. So the whole mystical ninja thing is just a localization, which is far from the first and far from the last time that would happen. Games get localized under different titles all the time. Biohazard became Resident Evil, Ryoga Gotoku became Yakuza, etc., etc. I love this music. You can't see it, but I'm dancing right now. Baron. Only a douchebag is named Baron. What would danger smell like? I'm going to go with a mixture of gasoline and arrogance. And now it's time to go fight our first boss of the game. But first, Fortune Doll. The King Robot Congo! And this really is basically nothing of a fight. Like, if there's ever a boss fight that's a nothing burger, it would be this one. I know a lot of people say that about, like, Queen Goma or King Dodongo from Ocarina of Time, but no. I would say this one is more of a nothing burger of a boss because it's just repetitive and long. Ugh. Honestly, I regret not speeding this one up by, like, 300%. But hey, now you all get to experience what I had to for this one. There are plenty of things I edit out, but this one, no. I guess there has to be at least some real experiences you're going to have to go through with me. This really is just attack the boss, avoid the lasers, that's it. And for my money, this boss just goes on way too long. I think it should have only had 3 phases. But I think it's like 5 or 6. Which is, ooh, that's excessive. That is excessive. I think starting with the second boss, it starts to get a lot better. And far less repetitive. At least the music is decent. Not great, not anything I would listen to on my own, like some of the other tracks in the game, but you know, it's passable. It exists. As Marge Simpson would say, that's enough. Oh, it's still going. It is still going. And it's over. We did it. Huzzah! And now we have our first plot coupon. There we go. The Miracle Moon. Not sure why I was hopping around there. Maybe just happy that the battle was finally over. At least these two made it out alive, I suppose. Ah, now we have our mission. First, we must do the hero thing and have the refusal of the call to action. But now we've gone through that character arc, and we're ready to face them! Quite the 10-second journey Goemon was on. And now we have the super pass, meaning we can now leave Oedo Town. And that is going to do it for this part. See you guys next time!